If you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel.
All right. We'll maybe go through the All NBA teams in another episode or another segment at some point. But for now, we are gonna hop out of the news. We're gonna start. So we are kind of changing up how we do things on the show now. We're gonna do less of a kind of necessity week to week episode and kind of do a little more episodic in terms of we'll record the news, and the segments are going to start to take a little bit more precedent here. So we're going to do a couple segments for you guys. We're going to start with, you're going to stick to the NBA. The NBA draft is coming up, and we want to break down a little bit of it. The lottery happened. The order in which the draft is going to be, going to proceed, it has been revealed. And so we're going to go through one of, obviously all of the mock drafts are going to be a little different, one of the more popular mock drafts out there right now, and just quickly decide, based off what we know about these players, if the top guys available in the draft are going to be a boom or bust, and if where they land is gonna impact that at all.
All right.
And thankfully, we get to start with a nice, easy one, as the number one overall pick is considered to be a better prospect than LeBron James, apparently. So that's pretty simple for us, I think.
Oh, share my screen. There we go. Yeah, so here's the board. I originally had up The Athletic, and they made me pay for a subscription. I told them to go pound sand. So where we're at, we got, I'd say we'll do 1 through 10.
But we'll go 1 through 10. That sounds good.
We should probably start toward the top, just because some of these potentially could be foregone conclusions. Obviously, there have been years where the number one overall pick has been busts, but Victor Wembanyama out of France, the unicorn 2.0, who can do it all, shoot, score, dunk standing, just incredible, minus his overall build because he is lanky beyond belief. I would venture to say that he'll be good.
I think so. And the fact that he gets to land with Pop in San Antonio. Let me put it this way. The last time that the Spurs had the number one overall pick in the draft, they took it and didn't miss the playoffs for 19 years.
Yep.
And it'll be that right there.
I will be curious to see what they develop around him, just because, okay, you had Tim Duncan, great pickup for the team. It was, in later years, all that was made even easier with Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and David Robinson when he was a rookie and starting out. But there's hope there for the Spurs. You finally got your guy. The only thing I worry about is just injuries, because he is very, very skinny, very, very lanky. Don't want to Chet Holmgren where he gets stepped on. But assuming he stays healthy, I think he'll be excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I think this guy has. I mean, he has the floor of, like you kind of mentioned, it could be anything. It could be an injury derails him quickly, or he could just be a pretty solid player, whatever. But his ceiling is obviously what's so high. I mean, he is Kevin Durant mixed with Rudy Gobert. That is the best way you can describe his play style. And I mean, the ceiling is exponential. This could be anywhere from like a regular old 10-time All-Star to the best player of all time. That is the scale of the ceiling for Victor Wembanyama. And San Antonio, I mean, he really could not have asked for a better situation to be in. Really couldn't have.
Number 2.
Boom.
Brandon Miller is slated at 2. I think Brandon Miller will be okay. Just okay. I think I'm feeling, a 6-man. Like, he could definitely work his way in the lineup. I think he'll just be kind of decent. Like, we're talking, what's a decent player on a bad team who kind of shows up every now and again. You talk about him like he could be good if he was on another team, and then he doesn't.
Tim Hardaway Jr.
It's a decent one. Kind of feeling a Christian Wood.
Eric Gordon when he was a Rocket.
Yeah. I think he'll be decent. A little concerned with how he played in the March Madness tournament, but nonetheless still had a very good season. Yeah.
I got to bust on this one. I am hearing a lot of bad things. I mean, obviously, we heard about what happened with him with the whole situation with the gun and whatnot. That's not what I'm talking about here. First of all, he had one of the worst March Madness runs, albeit only 2 games. One of the worst March Madness runs ever. And he was a freshman, young guy. Pressure probably mounted a little bit, but he has all the physical attributes of a great NBA player. But you know who also had a lot of the great physical attributes of a great NBA player? Justice Winslow. Where's he now? Sitting on the end of Portland's bench. I don't think Brandon Miller is very quality. I think if he has an attitude change, that would be probably the biggest thing. But from what I hear right now, he's also pretty out of shape. He's not really working out very much in his off season. And that, to me, that says a lack of commitment to, and it's almost just a foregone conclusion that he's going to be a great NBA player, and that's not the case. And so I'm a little worried about Brandon Miller. I really am.
Scoot Henderson, number 3. I would venture to say he'll actually probably go number 2. And from what I've seen and heard about him, I think he'll be a very good player. I would be concerned more about his fit. Like if he goes to Charlotte, as a point guard, what does he do? If he goes to Portland, what does he do with Damian Lillard? But it could be interesting. I think given the opportunity, he'll be good. And he plays for G League Ignite, right?
Yeah, he plays for the Ignite. And to be honest, I think any other year he'd be the consensus number 1 overall pick.
Oh, sure. Yeah. When you don't have a 7'5" French unicorn. Sure.
Exactly.
But this is the beginning phase of you have these guys like Jalen Green a few years ago who didn't go to college but did Ignite instead. This could be like the apex of what you could become foregoing college. And I'm curious to see, because I think this is going to give us some clarity about, to me, playing overseas and playing with basically grown men is the best thing you could do to be NBA ready. Ignite, a little bit new, we'll see, because you're still playing G Leaguers. So this is the best chance to really get a gauge of that, because I think he's the best G League Ignite player we have seen so far.
Yes, I agree with that considerably. I've known about Scoot Henderson for a little while. I kind of mentioned I like the prospect game of basketball. And there's been a lot of talk about could he play with Damian Lillard if he falls to Portland at 3. And he's pretty convinced he could. Obviously, he would be. My fear becomes a little bit of I know we never really got to see it, but Lonzo Ball, D'Angelo Russell type situation where it's like you just got 2 guys at this position that really want to play together but just can't. And it just doesn't quite work. So that's the real issue here. Is Scoot Henderson's great, but the teams drafting at 2 and 3, point guard is not something they're concerned about. And Scoot Henderson doesn't have the best 3-point shot. He is not somebody that can play the 2. And LaMelo's a facilitator primarily. Lillard is a guy who needs the ball in his hand to dominate. Those aren't guys you want to take the ball out of their hands of.
Next, we got the Thompson twins. Amen or Amen, and then Asar. Here's what I'll say. Twins, there's always one that's good and one that's bad. See the Lopez brothers. I bet you, and this is to preface all of this, the big knock on these guys, they play for the overtime league, correct?
Mm-hmm.
They are not good shooters.
No, they're not good shooters. And from what I understand, they were playing down a bit in terms of they were playing guys younger than them.
How young?
They're not much younger. Like they're 18. They're probably playing like 17, 16-year-olds.
Here's what I'll say. I'm going to blindly pick which one of these will be a half decent role player and the other who's going to be poor. Let's see. We have a point guard and a shooting guard.
I venture to guess they're both going to become point guards in the NBA.
I'm going to say, let's see. Robin and Brooke. Brooke was the one who was good. Robin, kind of fizzled out. I think Brooke's name's cooler, right?
What are you talking about? This year, Robin Lopez and Donovan Mitchell combined for 72 points one game.
This is true. I do forget about that. I'm going to say Amen's going to be half decent. Asar is going to be just bleh.
Yeah, that was my thought, and I think bringing up the position is actually the most important part of this, is because like I said, I think they're both going to have to be point guards in the NBA, given the fact they're not great shooters. Amen is the one that's been playing point guard this whole time. Not that Ozzer is incapable of learning or incapable of doing it and doesn't actually even know everything his brother does. He's just not practicing it all the time right now. Amen's a little more conditioned to, I think, the role he's going to get brought into, and that's why I think he's going to be a little bit better potentially. But the one thing that is to be said about these guys is they look like NBA players. They're well-grown gentlemen. They are gonna make, they're athletically speaking gonna make whoever they drafts them very happy. I see both of them having solid, role player roles right off the bat. With it looks like Houston and Detroit right now. I could see them fitting into both those rotations pretty easily.
6, Cam Whitmore, small forward, Nova. Nova prospects have been good in general. Eric Pascal is the one that comes to mind who's kind of fallen out of grace, but even he had a good year in Golden State.
He's still in the NBA. He's in a 2-way deal with Minnesota, I'm pretty sure.
Wow. You might as well say he's out of the league.
Come on, I talk about a Michigan Wolverines team who had like 7 players make the NBA, and they were all like, none of them got better than Tim Hardaway Jr. or Karis LeVert, but they all played in the NBA for a handful of years. Like, that's an impressive thing to do. No. Got a lot of players in the NBA.
I know, but when you compare them to the scope of your Jalen Brunsons, your Mikal Bridges,
your Harts, your Lowrys,
Where I'm getting with all this, though, is these guys are still good prospects, and a talented player out of Villanova does speak wonders.
I do have one thing to say about this 6th pick, though, and why, if it is Cam Whitmore, I'm very sorry for him. It's Orlando.
Ooh. They'll fit in well, Franz Wagner and every other forward they have there.
Exactly. They just have young depth out the ass and not enough time to play everybody.
Well, he may get shoved to the bench. So, all right. I feel like Josh Hart level ceiling, where he may have a few good years and then just kind of be a good role player.
I could very much see that. I don't think Cam Whitmore would have too large of an issue with that either.
All right. 7, Jarras Walker.
I think it's Jarras. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. Looking into this a little bit more, love this pick because it's Indiana. Power forward is by far their most needed position. They have basically just Jordan Nwora at the position. And James Johnson. Can't forget about James Johnson. He's a defensive player, if I'm not mistaken. He's the Jarras Walker. He's a guy who's going to bring some energy and some life to the defensive glass, to the hustle game. And that's something Indiana can use because we don't really know what's going to go on at center. But we know they have a guy like Halliburton who's great. We know they have a guy like Mathurin who's going to really, hopefully for them, turn into a solid scoring option. They don't need a 20-point-per-game scorer on the inside. They need their, for lack of a better term, Draymond Green type of guy, the defender, the rebounder, the all the dirty work type of guy. I think Jarras could maybe fit that role for them.
I don't disagree, but those type of players I think are a little they're antiques kind of now in the NBA. Draymond Green's the one who kind of puts that argument to rest with how he plays, but he's surrounded by great shooters. Sure. You have Halliburton, but playing him and Turner next to each other, assuming Turner's still there, could be just tough. From the 30 seconds I read about him, sounds like he's a decent shooter for a forward, but forwards like that kind of scare me. I think he'll be okay. I do think, though, we're talking bench player by year 4.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Is if by year 3 you haven't shown anything special, I mean, yeah, you're a bench player for the rest of your life.
Toward the bottom list, Anthony Black, Arkansas shooting guard.
This is the sneaky one of the draft. I've mentioned every year we go through and I talk about who's that guy in the top 10 lottery area that is going to not be a top 5 pick, but is going to make whoever drafts him very, very happy. It's this guy right here. It's Anthony Black, the freshman out of Arkansas. He's listed as a shooting guard. He's a point guard. He's incredible. He's 6'7". He moves like a guard, though. He passes like a guard, and he defends like a forward. And he is built. You know, it's going to take him a little bit of time to catch up to certain NBA players in terms of their athletic ability, their conditioning. But I think it's going to take him a year or two to do that. But once he's at that point, I think Anthony Black is very genuine, close to, if not borderline all-star in his career. Washington at 8 doesn't look like a great spot for him, but you know, if he gets into a good situation like, you know, Utah's 9, Dallas is 10, something like that, that's a version of Anthony Black that I think could really scare some people.
Considering he's 6'7", I very much like that pick, and I liked it even before. Just coming from Arkansas, I think they produce a lot of really sneaky good players who have a lot of potential. Like Isaiah Joes, who the Sixers let go, and now he's shooting like 45% from 3.
Yep.
Obviously, that's one example, but those guys and Eric Musselman down there they play very well in the tournament every year. And they get this opportunity and have good coaching. Like they're kind of, I think, bred for the NBA. And if this guy is 6'7" and is a good point guard, that sounds great to me. According to his bio, he has struggles with 3-point shooting.
Yes.
But so does Russell Westbrook, and Russell Westbrook still makes contributions. There's my ceiling for him. You heard it here first.
Heard it here first.
Triple-double machine.
Russell Westbrook still makes contributions.
Number 9, Taylor Hendricks out of UCF.
Yeah, I won't lie. This is the top 10 prospect I know by far the least about. But from a little bit of research that I have done on him, body-wise, he is ready for the NBA. You know, you can see if we show you the video later on, 6'9", 210. He's built. He's a strong presence, and he'll only get stronger as he gets to work in NBA facilities. The question is, you know, what role does he need to fill on whatever team drafts him? 9 would be Utah. Utah is in an interesting situation where they can use just about anything. They have some scorers, but they're not gonna turn away any type of scorer. Defense is obviously something they're looking hard for, and from what it seems like, he's a guy who looks like he can do it all, but you have to take into account the fact that he played for a smaller school, the fact that the competition level wasn't quite as high on a night-to-night basis. I always bring up the Michael Carter-Williams effect. I don't know if Taylor Hendricks necessarily falls into that category, but that's the issue I run into when I find a player that's supposed to be a top 10 pick that I haven't heard very much about.
If you say he shot 42% from 3 in college, that's obviously a good trait. Now the NBA 3-point line is a lot further back. Not a lot further back, but further back, and definitely helps to – doesn't help anyone, put it that way. I don't like the fact I haven't heard from him. UCF was not very good this past year. Now, there's been plenty of instances where bad team has good player.
Yeah, right. Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz really worked out for everybody.
Ben Simmons worked out for a good 3 years, and Markelle Fultz got the yips. So
he is the definition of got the yips.
I don't condone that Markelle Fultz pick. I didn't even when they picked him, because when I found out Ben Simmons was playing point guard, I'm like, we don't need a point guard, and we picked the point guard. You know, we did need a small forward, and you know who we didn't get?
Jaylen Brown.
Jason Tatum.
Jason Tatum. I always get those two mixed up in their drafts.
So I would say this: he'll be a bust.
Yeah, I was gonna say this one feels like it could be the bust.
He's gonna get the yips.
The yips. Gosh, I remember when Sixers fans were like, "No, it's fine. Markelle Fultz was gonna play shooting guard."
What is it with everyone and just not shooting threes on the Sixers? Anyway,
we don't do that here. All right, number 10. The pick belongs to Orlando via Chicago. It is projected on ESPN that it is going to be Grady Dick of Kansas. Hilarious name aside, he is a very good basketball player. Christian Braun of the Denver Nuggets was getting highly touted in the second round of the playoffs for his great defense against Kevin Durant. Grady Dick reminds me a lot of Christian Braun. He's a larger player in terms of the position he plays. He's 6'6", 6'7" shooting guard. He's got a long wingspan. He can shoot the three. Those are already quality aspects of NBA players. Now you just have to get him, attuned to the game. You have to get his body, physically strong enough to play against NBA players. You have to get him, adjusted to the different style of game, the further back 3-point line, like you mentioned. But he's got very solid player written all over. I'm not going to say he's ever going to make an all-star game. I'm also not going to say he's going to be a bust. And we won't hear from him in 3 years. I think this is going to be just a very useful NBA player right there, Grady Dick, and just a hilarious freaking name.
I think he could have the potential to be a guy like Tyler Hero, where that's what he's good for. He's shooting lights out, and that's sort of the end of the story. But I think he'll be a step under that, but to that level of role, he's shooting 40% plus in college. That's incredible. And I do think that's where a team's going to have a lot of use for him. Magic could definitely just use a sharpshooter, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But any scoring is welcome in Orlando.
Yeah. I like it. I think ceiling is Tyler Hero. I think he'll be a good player.
That's a good ceiling for him. I pity his girlfriend if he's anything like his name. All right, we won't go through the rest of the picks. I'm just going to toss out a couple names of players to watch. You can see on the list here. I mean, Nick Smith, another guy out of Arkansas that is definitely NBA ready in terms of the skill set that he brings. Cason Wallace, that's a name to watch out of Kentucky. We know what Kentucky does in terms of producing NBA players. We saw most recently out of the guard position, Tyrese Maxey. I think Cason Wallace could be the literal next Tyrese Maxey. I think they're almost, if not the exact same player. He's an energy guy. He runs up and down the court. He's super fast. Maybe not the best defender, but never going to give you anything less than 100% on the defensive end. He's a fun player to watch. And then finally, I don't know how he's fallen so far, but Keontae George from Baylor. This was a guy who at the beginning of the year was going to be a top 5 pick, no question. Baylor had some struggles. He had some struggles. His 3-point shooting was something that I know was a hotbed for this year in terms of what was talked about him. But, I mean, he's known he was going to get to this stage for a long time. He's been recruited since, the beginning of high school. This kid, he's just so freakishly athletic. I mean, you see some of the dunks that he does, and it's terrifying. You see some of the moves he makes when driving. It's terrifying. It's the raw talent and athleticism that he has can be just contains not the right word, can be manipulated into a quality NBA player. I mean, the sky is truly the limit for him. This could be the second best player in this draft class without any real debate if his skill can be honed. Otherwise, I mean, he's 15? That's not even a lot. That would be Atlanta right now. He could also just very easily be an average role player that goes nowhere. But he is the most boomer bust I see out of everybody that's projected to be a first-round pick.
So there you have it. There's our biased predictions about where people's lives are going to go in the next 10 years.